Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. Shouts out to everybody listening around the country, around the world, wherever you are, wherever you may be. Special shout out to those that are in the chat. Really do appreciate you as well. On this edition, we're going to be talking about tight end Foster Moreau and, his trip to the New Orleans Saints and, the unfortunate diagnosis that they found. And also, we're going to be talking about, will the Saints consider drafting a wide receiver in the first round of the NFL draft? Well, let's go ahead and get started, man. I mentioned Foster Moreau. Some of you, I'm pretty sure, know who he is. He's a Louisiana native. He was born and raised in New Orleans. He went to Jesuit High School. He went to LSU. He was drafted in the fourth round, pick number 137 by the Oakland Raiders back in 2019. Last year, he had his best numbers statistically. He had 33 catches, 54 targets for 420 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he was a highly touted tight end, coming from the Raiders. He tested the free agent market. Some people thought that he was waiting on Dalton Schultz, the good tight end that played for the Cowboys, to see where his market was. One of the teams that he visited, of course, was the New Orleans Saints. He visited the New Orleans Saints, and everything seemed like it was going in the right direction. It looked as if he was considering even signing with the New Orleans Saints. Of course, they had to check him out and do a physical on him, and unfortunately, this happened. This is from Foster Moreau's Twitter, and I'm going to go ahead and read this. He says, though somewhat of a miraculous process, this free agency period has been life-changing for me. During a routine physical conducted by the Saints medical team down in New Orleans, I've come to learn that I have Hodgkin's lymphoma and will be stepping away from football. He also went on to say, at this time, to fight a new opponent, which is cancer. I'm grateful for the support and thankful for the people that have stood firm with me. There hasn't been a single step I've taken without hundreds of people lighting the path before me, and I will continue to seek guidance. And he says, that being said, I'll go kick this thing's ass and get back to doing what I love. So that comes from Foster Moreau's Twitter account. Look, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that feels this way. Definitely want Foster Moreau to get healthy. He can get back to playing football, like he said in that last little sentence there. Look, there are some things in life that are bigger than football. There are some things in life that are bigger than sitting down watching football on television. I know that we all have an emotional investment in the game. A lot of you, well, one of the reasons why you're here is because you love the New Orleans Saints and you're so enamored with the team. I am as well. But there comes a time when, there's something that's more important than just, a couple of little lines on some grass. And this is one of those situations. It's unfortunate, but it's a blessing. If Foster Moreau didn't, maybe pursue free agency, who would have known? He probably wouldn't have known about it until it was a little bit too late. So that was a blessing in disguise that he was able to take this physical, and for the Saints coaching staff to diagnose him with Hodgkin's lymphoma. I know we are very, very critical of the Saints medical staff. Some of us feel like they need to be fired. Some people, have been critical about, how some of these players' injuries, they seem like they have been prolonged. But one thing that we have to admit on this day, these guys are champions because they possibly saved a man's life. And that's something that should not be just kind of breezed through. Okay. This moment, I want to give props to the Saints medical staff for doing their due diligence, for finding this out. And in order for Foster Moreau to be able to, go out here, get the proper treatment and get back to doing what he loves to do. Now, it's going to be a battle, of course. Anybody that has known anybody that has cancer, or somebody is dealing with it, you know that it's a battle. But, I'm very, very confident that Foster Moreau will be able to get through this, and, he can come back as a champion. Once again, there's some things in life that are more important than the game of football, and this man's life, to me, trumps that. So hope that he has a speedy recovery. I hope that he gets back to playing football, and I hope that everything works out for the tight end. That's pretty much, sums it up. And but I mean, you look at where the Saints are. The Saints have been doing a really good job at recruiting guys like Foster Moreau, and also guys like Jonathan Abram, who I talked about a little bit on yesterday's episode, and also, some of the other guys that came in, Keelan Saunders, Nathan Shepard, the list goes on and on, guys that have come in, and it really seems like people are buying into what the Saints are indeed selling. Now, the Saints are more appealing today, because they have themselves a solid quarterback in Derek Carr. Regardless to what side of the fence that you sit on, Derek Carr makes the Saints look a little bit more appealing, especially like when it comes to guys coming in from the offensive side as well as the defensive side. When you have a quarterback that guys believe that can help you win, they will, come along. And, the Saints have gotten some really good, solid guys, some guys that are young to help the defense. And I think that we're going to see some guys on the offensive side of the ball spread their wings and get better as well. The question on everybody's mind is, what are the Saints going to do with the first round pick this year, right? You got pick number 29. I mean, our emotions have been pretty much everywhere, right? We went from, oh, man, we need a quarterback, to we signing Derek Carr. Well, we need ourselves an interior lineman. In comes Nathan Shepard. In comes Keelan Saunders. In comes Malcolm Roach coming back from to the New Orleans Saints. So we still need some help on the interior with that. We also need, as far as edge rushers, are the Saints going to try to get an edge rusher? You can never have too many of those. We don't have Davenport anymore. Peyton Turner has had a history of being injured. You signed Tano Passanio, but he's more of a rotation guy. But there are some stories that are saying that the Saints, showed up to the Ohio State Pro Day. Many people were there to see guys like C.J. Stroud, but of course, you have other players out there. You got Paris Johnson, the star tackle that's out there. You also have Jaxon Smith-Njigba, a guy that, is a really good wide receiver. He had a little bit of some injuries this past year, so it's kind of like, he didn't really play as much, but we all know how talented he is. And if you look at some of the mock drafts that they have out there, some mock drafts have him going to the Eagles. Some of them have him going to the Texans. Some of them have him going to the Patriots. So will the Saints consider drafting a guy like Jaxon Smith-Njigba? Well, we all know that the Saints love themselves some Ohio State players. I want to say they drafted maybe like 7 Ohio State players in the last 5 years. To say that the Saints love Ohio State players would be an understatement. And Jaxon Smith-Njigba is a really good wide receiver. Some people would even say that he was better than Garrett Wilson and also Chris Olave. He is the guy that stands out, right? He's a young guy. He's out of Rockwall, Texas. But I don't expect for Jaxon Smith-Njigba to be there at number 29 for the New Orleans Saints. So in order for them to try to acquire him, they're going to have to move up. Now, is that a smart decision? Well, I look at it this way. The Saints need so much help at all different positions. I wouldn't even be mad if they decide to move up to acquire a guy that they love. Look, I have no problem with that. I think somebody asked me a couple days ago, I want to say it on the show on Tuesday, would you be upset if the Saints, move up to get Nolan Smith? Absolutely not. If the Saints move up to get, Kalijah Kancey, would I be mad? Absolutely not. I mean, Von Ness, no, absolutely not. Look, if you feel like the guy that can help your team win is available and maybe you need to move up a few more spots in order to acquire them, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all, because the name of the game is win, right? Win the game. That's the whole point of doing this. And we all know that the Saints, they need to start looking at some of these younger players, guys that can be those cornerstone players, because now you got some older guys that are on the team. They still have something to offer, but at the same time, you want to have yourself a little bit of a succession plan going while you have guys like Demario Davis and Cam Jordan still being able to give you a little something. You can have some young players come along and they can, go alongside some of the veterans and they can learn how to become pros and they can become your cornerstone players. Now, if Jaxon Smith-Njigba is the guy that you feel like you need to go up and get, I say go up and get him. Now, some people would say that that's absolutely crazy because they're looking at the wide receiver room and they're taking into account Michael Thomas and they take into account of what Rashid Shaheed did last year and what Chris Olave did last year. But we all know that if you look at the New Orleans Saints wide receiver room over the last couple of years, it has been unfortunate that a lot of the guys that we have counted on to be out there and be available on Sunday have not been there. And I just think that, those that don't look at their history are doomed to repeat it. And I just think that you've seen what was happening with the wide receiver room. You've seen the injuries. I just think that you need to dot your I's and cross your T's. And if you can get yourself a good wide receiver in the first round, then I say do it. Because here's the thing. You sign Michael Thomas to a 1-year contract, right? It is more like a prove-it deal and it's incentive-laden deal. And with that, you're still going to have to ask the question after, the first year. If he plays and he plays well and he's not hurt and he's not dealing with injuries, you still have to ask yourself, well, is there a possibility that after he signs his contract, will he get hurt again, right? You still got to ask this question. You also have to ask, what am I going to do going forward with Michael Thomas? Can I find somebody else that can maybe, come in and I don't have to pay as much? So those are some things that you have to definitely look at, at the wide receiver position. But like I said, if you can get Njigba, if you're happy and satisfied with what you can, what he can bring, and you think that him along with Chris Olave for the next 3 to 4 years can terrorize the NFL, then I say go up and get him. Now, it may not be the most popular opinion. It may not be the most popular thing to do. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure that your wide receiver room is intact. You got to make sure that you have enough playmakers to be able to sustain a 17-game season. You have to make sure that you're not looking and trying to find guys that are on this, on a scrap heap around week number 9 or week number 10 because your wide receiver room is decimated, right? And it will be hard for me to kind of sympathize with that because at the same time, you have seen over the last couple of years what your wide receiver room can look like due to injury. So if you can kind of, tighten up that wide receiver room, I don't know, maybe if you want to sign somebody, but if you don't want to do that, draft somebody, I'm all for it. If you want to draft somebody in round, with number 40 in the second round, I wouldn't be mad at that. Look, the Saints, once again, need so many different things, so many different positions. It's hard for you to get upset if they go after a offensive lineman or they go after a linebacker. I mean, they can go in any direction. And I don't think anybody will get mad. I just think that sometimes they draft players that we don't consider exciting and we find ourselves getting upset. Like Anton Harrison, I did a mock draft, and I had Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma, going to the Saints at number 29. And some people were like, well, what are you talking about? On the offensive lineman, what we need with offensive linemen. But if you look at it, James Hurst has been hurt. Trevor Penning has been hurt. Andrews Pete has been hurt. So what are you going to do, right? We don't think about those things until they actually happen. Once again, you have to make sure that you're fully prepared, right? You have to make sure that you're fully prepared. So sometimes it's not the most popular decision to make, but it's a necessary decision to make. But that's why I feel about it. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they were to try to draft a wide receiver in the first round. You got to be able to protect yourself and protect your team and make sure that you can still have playmakers available when necessary. But let me go ahead and read some of your comments. Thank y'all so much for being here. I really do appreciate that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit just so we can kind of, kind of stay lock and step with the topics. Jerry says, TJ, I was looking for you to come on the Who That Nation chat line podcast, tagging along with CB, with Rick, Sean, and DJ, but I understand daddy duties. Yeah, Jerry, look, I was checking it out last night. I was with Paxton, and I was just laying in a bed. Of course, I was watching my guys, man. Look, DJ and Mike and Sean, those are really good guys. I've known DJ and Mike. Of course, we've done like projects together over the last 3 years. I definitely consider those guys my friends. I love those brothers to death, man. And they're such great people. Like, I think a lot of people see, them on camera, but like behind the scenes, like they're really good human beings, like great fathers, God-fearing men, and they love football, and also shouts out to CB, who is, I've known for, quite some time. He does a really good job on a WDN chat line as well. So it's not hard for me to try to support a show like that when you got, so much love for everybody that's a part of that. So I definitely enjoyed it. Those guys are funny, and I'm sorry that I missed it, man, because anytime I link up with those guys, man, it's always fun to do podcasts and shows with those guys. The sky's the limit for what they're doing. I mean, it's just a matter of time before the entire world sees how special those guys really are. Let's see, who that SOTS family. Charles, thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate that. At TJ, do you think the Saints will go after DeForest Buckner for the right price? Rose City, I think so. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I seen Cameron Jordan kind of lobbying for that. DeForest Buckner, of course, we know that he got drafted by the 49ers, end up leaving them in free agency, going to the Colts. Has done a really good job there in the interior. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. It don't seem like the price tag is just too expensive for the Saints to be able to try to grab. I wouldn't be mad at it, and the way that the Saints have been, really, really aggressive this offseason acquiring free agents, I wouldn't be surprised if they at least make a phone call to his representation and try to see, how they can, maybe make some things happen with the Indianapolis Colts to bring him to New Orleans. So, I'm not mad at it. I mean, he's an extremely talented football player, and we know that he can handle up on his business, and he is a really good run-stopping defensive lineman. So I like it a lot. I like his athleticism. I like his personality. I like his aggression. And you put that alongside Cameron Jordan, Tano Passanio, and maybe, Peyton Turner, and maybe another young edge rusher, I think you're going to have yourself a problem in New Orleans. But I wouldn't mind it at all. I like him. I've always liked DeForest Buckner. I mean, he's a very, very talented player. TJ, you think the Saints might go still get Hooker? You know what? I don't know if they would try to get Hendon Hooker or not. I'm not too sure about that. I just feel like with the combination of Derek Carr and Jameis Winston, the Saints may look at 2024 at maybe trying to draft themselves a quarterback. It's a much deeper draft at the quarterback position. A lot of those guys that are going to be coming out, a lot of the mock draft guys consider those guys to be cornerstone quarterbacks, future faces of the NFL. So I think maybe the Saints may be looking in 2024 to try to acquire a guy that can possibly be the successor to Derek Carr once, those 3 years are up with the New Orleans Saints. As far as Hendon Hooker, I just hope that he ends up going to a team that can actually, get him where he needs to be. I see a team like, the Buccaneers. I can see him with the Titans. I can see him maybe with the Minnesota Vikings. I see some teams that would be a really good fit for him. Anywhere it go, it's going to be one of those things where he's going to have to sit behind a starting quarterback and learn. It'll probably be one of those things where you probably won't see Hooker the entire season, or if he goes to a team and the quarterback struggles, you might see him come in. And that's something, honestly, that I don't want. I would rather him sit behind a quarterback on a team that is destined for the playoffs, right? That's going to, give him opportunity to really sit behind him and learn. Because if he gets out there too prematurely, it can affect his confidence. And, we all know that everybody loves themselves a rookie, when he first come in. Everybody love him because he is the representation of what the franchise can do, and everybody just, enamored by him. And then all of a sudden, if he's not ready and he gets thrust into the lineup, then people are like, man, what's going on with him? But he hasn't fully developed yet. And we know at the quarterback position that is amplified, right? If you're not going out there, like putting your skills on display right away, fan bases can kind of turn their back on you, right? And be like, I don't think he's the guy. And you start listening to that stuff and it affects you. It affects you psychologically. It might, even though you might have the chance to really be a good quarterback, because of, you getting thrust out there, it might affect you. So hopefully, a guy like Hooker can go to a team where he can actually sit there and learn and watch the team, go through the motions, win some games, get to the postseason. And all the while he can learn from the quarterback coach and the starting quarterback of that team. But if he goes to a team that, is a train wreck, I think it might affect him and it might end up hurting him as a quarterback. But I wish him all the best. And the wide receiver group in this draft is deep. Yeah, it's pretty deep, Tidra. It really is. It's not one of those where, it's very top heavy and then it's a huge drop. Honestly, I feel like this may sound crazy, but you probably can find multiple, leading receivers, that can lead the league in receiving yards and touchdowns probably in the 4th or the 5th round, as crazy as that sounds. That's how deep it is. You can find guys that can really contribute to a team late in rounds. That's why, if the Saints don't draft a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds, I'm not mad at that, because you can find guys. And I keep on saying this guy because I feel like he kind of fits the mold of the Saints. The Bryce Ford Wheaton, the guy out of West Virginia, he's probably going to be like a 4th or a 5th round. Cedric Tillman is probably going to be like a 4th or a 5th rounder. I mean, you got so many different guys that fit that possession mode. You got so many different guys that can take the top off the defense. You got so many different guys that are crisp route runners. So to me, you don't have to get one in the first 2 rounds, even if it sounds like, even if it's a guy that you're probably not too familiar with. You're probably more familiar with the Njigbas, the Quentin Johnstons, guys like that, right? The guys that kind of, solidified themselves. You're probably not too familiar with some of these other guys in the later part of the draft, but they can be key contributors. So it's not the end of the world if the Saints don't go after a guy like Smith-Njigba or, try to get a guy like Johnston or Zay Flowers. It's okay, because this is a pretty deep draft at the wide receiver position. And you can definitely get a wide receiver in the 4th or the 5th round that can make some noise and have the fan base going crazy every time they hit the field. Alfred, thank you very much for the $4.99. Says, I'm all for loading up the wide receiver room because after a few weeks into the season, we back to the guys we was complaining about. We need that 2018 depth. Yeah, I mean, you need depth at the wide receiver position. And I also just think that the Saints need to get away from the Paytonisms when it comes to the wide receivers. And what I mean by that is, Sean Payton really had a knack for getting the most out of the most average receiver. But getting the most out of that receiver might be, he can take the top off the defense, so I'm going to have him running a street route all the time, or, I'm going to have him running deep posts. So it almost make that player becomes one-dimensional. And it also gives the opposition the idea that we know what you all are about to do. It's almost like when the Saints played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think it was like 3rd and 1, and Carlton Davis kind of set on the route because he knew Marquez Callaway was going to run a quick slant. And after he bats the ball away, he looks at Callaway and says, "Man, I knew what you was going to do, man. You always run that play," right? So I think the Saints need to get away from that, right? Get guys that can do more than just maybe 2 routes, right? Get some crisp route runners, guys that can take the top off the defense, guys that can, have really good body control, guys that can work the middle of the field as well as take the top off the defense. Because here's the thing, if you get guys that have a plethora of skills at the wide receiver position, it makes your offense even more deadly, because you can't zero in on just Michael Thomas, because you have to account for Chris Olave's ability to work the field and take the top off the defense. You can't just wait and try to see if, Chris Olave is just going to take the top off the defense, because now, he can do so many other things, or Rashid Shaheed can do so many other things. So I do think that you need to get away from those things, not just, getting guys that are just one dimensional, because if you get more than one guy that has the possibility of going over 100 yards, it makes your offense even more deadly. Like, because you can't just double cover Michael Thomas and say, okay, we got everything under control. So you get guys that can do a multifaceted of things, and you put them out there, and you'll have yourself a high-powered offense, in my opinion. I say go for it and have a BPA approach in the draft. Well, look, all I know is you try to get the best players possible, and you try to make sure that your team is more formidable than your opposition. So any way that happens, you just make it happen. Jerry, we talking about the rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine getting beat up at the gym. Oh, that's another story for another day. Nah, from what I've seen, the wide receiver class is thin. I only like Hyatt and Wheaton in this draft. Nah, it's not thin at all, man. I'm telling you. Have an opportunity to go to the Senior Bowl, have an opportunity to go to the Combine, talking to these guys, watching some of their film, watching like some of these guys' strong points and some of their weaknesses. This is not a weak draft, man. Now, you might consider it weak because you may not know a lot of the guys like right offhand, and I'm not, no disrespect, because I'm pretty sure you're very, very knowledgeable. But sometimes, like, when you have a bunch of guys that, that come from big name schools, we can kind of look at it like it being top heavy, right? Oh man, after that, they ain't really got nobody. So when you start thinking about Quentin Johnston, and then you start thinking about Jaxon Smith-Njigba, you start thinking about Zay Flowers, but then you also got to take into account, some of those other guys that came from schools that probably wasn't on TV all the time, or they probably, played in a school that's kind of in the middle of the pack of their respective conference, but they still was out there making some noise. There's a lot of talented wide receivers out there. Have an opportunity, like I said, to go to like the Senior Bowl, to go to the Combine, to interact with some of these guys, to see these guys out in some of these one-on-one drills, and see these guys, running these routes. And, there are a lot of talented wide receivers in this draft. Now, you have to go to a team that's going to be able to take your talent and put it together and put it out there on display. So sometimes guys can kind of slide through the cracks, or guys don't live up to their potential because they fall to a team that doesn't have their best interests at heart. But if you have a talented guy and he goes to a really good team that can develop them in the right way, you can see some really talented wide receivers. And this, like, to me, this gonna sound crazy, or probably not to me, but this is probably the most talented wide receiver draft since 2015. Like, when you had like Mike Evans and Odell Beckham Jr. and Brandon Cooks and all these guys came out. It's pretty talented, man. It's a pretty talented draft. Let's see. I'll be good today. Would you give up a 5th round pick for D-Hop? Absolutely. I definitely would give up a 5th round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, I don't know a team that wouldn't give up a 5th round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. He's one of the most talented wide receivers in the entire National Football League. Now, you have some young guys that kind of came through, like the Justin Jeffersons and the T. Higgins and the Jamar Chases of the world, but DeAndre Hopkins is still one of the best wide receivers in football. And I kind of put him over a lot of these guys, because if you look at DeAndre Hopkins' career, I mean, this dude has been having pretty much the most average quarterbacks throwing him the football. The T.J. Yates, the Brock Osweilers. So many different guys that have been the starting quarterback of the Houston Texans over the years, and he still finds a way to be in the best wide receiver in the league conversation. So I definitely would give up a 5th round pick for him. I think that he's extremely talented, and I would give that up in a heartbeat. Mario says, TJ, the host, what's going on, Mario? Thank you for being here. Says, yo, TJ, I finally made it to a live. Smile, thank you, man. It's probably because I'm doing the show kind of earlier than usual. I got a meeting that I have to go to around the time I normally launch episode. I don't normally launch it maybe like around 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I have something to do later on this evening. So, this afternoon. So I have to do it a little bit early. It says, with that being said, I hope Jay Williams is not put in a situation where when he comes in is run, but when Kamara comes in is pass mix, both run and pass with both. Pete, yeah. Look, I don't look. You can't run the offense the way that you did last year. It was boring. It was vanilla. You got to get in your bag. You have to go out here. You got to watch some of the film of some of these other teams. You got to watch film of maybe guys on a collegiate level. Honestly, look, if you see a pass, or a play that was at a high school football game that you can run in the pros, I say do it. Look, the league constantly changes, right? It constantly changes. And if you can't adapt with the times, you're going to fall behind. So you can't just get enamored with the Paytonisms. Once again, I understand that Pete Carmichael is a Sean Payton, disciple or whatever, or I won't call him the disciple, but he's a mentee or something like that, I guess, somebody that follows Sean Payton's philosophies. There it is, follows the philosophies. I understand that, but you have to create your own, and you also have to be able to adapt with the times, because if you don't, you're going to be on the outside looking in. And honestly, if Pete Carmichael has another run at, how it was last season, that's when the whispers are really going to start getting really, really loud. And people are going to wonder how good of a coordinator you actually are. Are you really as good as you people think you are, or were you just a recipient of being on the staff with Sean Payton? Right now, I've seen some games where Pete Carmichael was really in his bag and he was getting in the ebbs and flows of the game. But I hope that the New Orleans Saints, allow Pete Carmichael, to do his thing. But I also hope that they actually bring somebody else in, a different set of eyes, somebody that may be a little bit younger, may have some different ideas, maybe a little bit more innovative. You can never have too many guys like that on your staff, right? So this might be the year. This is going to be the deciding factor, and people are going to be asking a question like, is Pete Carmichael, that good, or Sean Payton, kind of, cleaning up the messes, and it made it seem like it was more of him than it really was. With that being said, I already read that one that says, Michael Jefferson is 6'4", 210 pounds, who played for the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. He's a hidden gem. Yeah, look, I think that there's a lot of hidden gems out there. I really do. There's a lot of guys that kind of, that's going to be sliding through the cracks. So he may be one of them. He may be one of them. And, if he goes to the right situation, he might be a really good player. TJ, who do you think the best cornerback duo is in the league? The best cornerback duo in the league? It's kind of hard to go against the Miami Dolphins right now, acquiring Jalen Ramsey, and they still have, if I'm not mistaken, they still got Howard out there. They got some talented guys in that secondary. I don't want to be biased, and say, it's the Saints, because I'll be lying. Alontae Taylor showed a lot, last season, but I'm not going to put them ahead of some guys that have proven it year in, year out constantly. So I have to say the Miami Dolphins would be one. Before, the trade, the Cleveland Browns had a pretty good, talented cornerback duo out there. Philadelphia, they got a talented cornerback with Darius Slay and James Bradbury. So, you got a bunch of teams out there that they have a really good, solid cornerback room, but it's hard for me to just say, this team, because I can see a lot of good, got a lot of good, talented cornerbacks that are on these teams out here. So says, I'm late, but what's up, Who Dat Nation? Facts, we're going to have to address the wide receiver position after next season anyway. Might as well take care of the right take care of it right now, especially a wide receiver in the draft. Plus, we saw Olave go down, so let's cover our tails. Yeah, I mean, you got to take into account every little thing. You know, you got to be able to dot your I's and cross your T's. You can't just ignore it and just think that the problem is going to go away. It's almost like, you know, you ever started your car and rode around in your car, and then you start hearing like a little ticking noise, and you know, you're like, oh man, I don't want to hear it. Then you turn up your radio so you can drown out the sound that's underneath your hood. Well, guess what? I mean, you can turn up the radio and that song might jam a little bit harder because the bass hitting. But guess what? Whatever there's ticking underneath your hood, you're gonna have to get that addressed, or you know, you ain't gonna be able to ride no more. You know, that's kind of how it is. You got to be able to cover yourself. You got to be able to cover yourself and pay attention to some of the things that transpire in order for you to be able to fix it and become better. So let me go down a little bit, scroll down. Says, I'm from Fresno, California, so I can't wait for Derek jersey to come out. Shouts out to you out there in Fresno on the West Coast, man. A little bit early. It was about 9 o'clock there. So shouts out to you, man. Let's see. People assume Derek Carr will be better than Jameis Winston. What happens if he's not? Well, if he's not better than Jameis Winston, then, you know, I mean, guess the Saints won't make the playoffs. Guess they will have another bad season. Guess, you know, some of these shows will become, you know, very frustrating shows, you know, to do. But I'm not wishing that, you know. Look, at the end of the day, I hate to be this person, but I just gotta be 100% honest. Jameis Winston ain't the starting quarterback. Like, and some of you out there just gonna have to deal with it. Like, talking about, oh, Jameis got screwed, Jameis got met. Like, look, I don't think anybody wants to play more than Jameis Winston. I don't think anybody wants to see somebody play more than, you know, Jameis Winston does as far as him being a starting quarterback, but he's not. And, you know, going back and forth and bringing up Derek Carr's imperfections and saying Derek Carr ain't going to succeed because of this. And I mean, how is that going to benefit the New Orleans Saints? Like, right now, he's the starting quarterback. I'm talking Derek Carr. He's the starting quarterback of the Saints. And there's nothing you can really do about it. Unless something happens to Derek Carr, he is the starting quarterback. So, you know, trying to, you know, I guess pick up the bloodstained Jameis banner is not going to benefit at all. It's not going to benefit this team. And honestly, it just creates unnecessary chaos. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, I like Jameis Winston just like everybody else, but he's not the starting quarterback. And, you know, I don't think it's because of racism. I don't think it's because, you know, of anything like that. I just believe that Derek Carr and Dennis Allen, they have a relationship. And I just feel like Dennis Allen believes that Derek Carr is more qualified to be the starting quarterback than Jameis Winston is. And, you know, sitting up here complaining about Jameis Winston not starting or Jameis Winston not playing, it's not going to happen. And also, man, you got to, like, we got to, look, we got to be real with ourselves, right? Jameis Winston came into the league in 2015, and some of us is arguing like this dude is like a first-year starter. He had over almost 100 opportunities to solidify himself as a starter, and he didn't. You know, I mean, what's the issue with that? You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but it's not like, you know, it's not like it's a Rudy situation, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole crowd just, you know, chanting Rudy and we want him in the game because we ain't never seen Rudy play. We seen this guy play before, you know, and were there some good things about him? Absolutely. But there was also some things where, you know, people have to wonder, like, have we made the right decision? So it's not like, once again, it's not like we're talking about a 21-year-old kid. We're talking about almost a 30-year-old man who's had almost 100 starts. So I think that it's about that time. You know, it's time to, you know, see, you know, like, if Derek Carr don't pan out, then it just don't pan out. But that's Dennis Allen's choice. That's his choice. You know, but I mean, I wish Jameis the best. I really do. I wish him the best. I think that he definitely deserves to be a starter in the National Football League, but he's not going to be starting on the Saints team. So we can cry or we can keep moving forward and see what 2023 has to offer with Derek Carr. Would you be upset if we draft the tight end out of Notre Dame, Mike Mayers? No, I would not. No, I would not be upset at all. I think that he's a really talented tight end. I remember watching him the first game of the season. I think that when they played Ohio State, I mean, the dude was an absolute monster. So I would not be mad at that. But I don't think he's going to end up going to the Saints. I think more than likely he'll probably get drafted like early. Like, I think Cincinnati, they need themselves a tight end. You know, a couple more teams need a tight end. But if he falls to the Saints, him or Kincaid, you know, out of Utah, like, I wouldn't be mad at that. Would you be opposed to taking running back Gibbs at 29? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be Jahmyr Gibbs. I wouldn't be upset with that. I mean, he has a lot of qualities like Alvin Kamara. I wouldn't be upset with that. I hate when my car is acted up with the noise or something like that, and you take it to the mechanic and then it's not doing it anymore. Car makes you look like a liar. Well, I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry, right? And getting it checked out, you know, is always a good thing. Y'all fandom crazy. Y'all be wishing someone fail. I don't care if SpongeBob leading my team. I'm pushing him and rooting. I mean, absolutely. Look, I'm not one of those people. I'm not looking for somebody to fail. Because, look, I think you're missing a mark if you're wishing somebody fail just so you can look right to the masses. Like, I take no pride, like, when I have takes and I say something not going to work out and it don't work out, right? I'd rather it be the opposite, believe it or not. I'd rather say something like, if a guy is struggling, right, and I'm like, man, maybe it's time to move on, or maybe they need to go in a different direction, and that guy proves me wrong, like, I feel good about that. As crazy as that sound, because I don't want to sit on this show and bash and talk about people and talk about their shortcomings and say that they're not good enough. Like, I'd rather, you know, them prove me wrong. But here's the thing, man, like, saying somebody ain't the answer, oh, it ain't gonna work out because you're mad because they didn't go with your guy. I just think that that's just the wrong way of looking at it. You know, at the end of the day, you have to think about, if this dude don't succeed, then that he's the representative of your team, right? It's the representative. He's the representative of your team. He is, on as far as the offense, he is one of the main deciding factors if your team is going to be successful or not. So why would you want him to fail? You know, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I like Jameis Winston as well as the next man, but I'm not preying on Derek Carr's downfall so Jameis Winston, you know, I can be right about my take on Jameis Winston. Like, come on, man. Like, is being right mean that much to you that you're willing to, like, see somebody fail or even, like, watch your team crumble? Like, nah, not to me. Seattle in the house listening to at 9 a.m. doesn't matter always who that. Daryl, thank you so much for listening all the way in Seattle, Washington. Man, y'all up early on the West Coast. Man, I appreciate that, man. That's an honor. Like, for y'all to be, you know, checking this show out. I appreciate that, man. I know it's early. Tell him TJ says, please don't start with the Jameis versus Carr thing. Yeah, I'm kind of over that, man. I'm over it. You know, like, I think yesterday, to me, you know, shouts out to Jameis 101. Enjoyed the interview, but it just made me just realize, man, like, anytime you start talking about, you know, this type of comparison, it just kind of it kind of draws like a divide in the Who Dat Nation. And that's not the type of energy that I want to be on. Like, I don't want to be on that. Like, I'd rather talk about how this team can actually win some football games. I'd rather talk about how, you know, they can add certain players to certain positions than get back to the playoffs. Like, talking about Jameis versus Derek is, like, honestly, I just think that it's just a waste of time. You know, it doesn't benefit anything, you know, and it only just kind of just makes us upset and frustrated as a fan base. So, you know, I had to look at that. You know, honestly, I had to look at that yesterday, and I was talking to my wife about it, you know, and that's not the type of energy I want to bring, you know, to make, you know, I was going back and I was listening to the interview, of course, but I seen the chat and I seen so many people going back and forth over the topic, and that's just not the energy that I want to bring. I want to bring positivity to the show. Of course, a couple laughs and some truth in it as well. But I don't want to bring that at the expense of, creating a divide in the Who Dat Nation. Like that wasn't the energy that I wanted. So definitely don't want that. I'd rather, have positive energy happening on this show more so than the negative. Says there's only one team that truly flexes at the end of the year. Yeah, that's true. Only one team stands alone, right? Only one team can win the Super Bowl. If Jameis has to stop due to injury, do you think he would have been able to run the same scheme as Carr, or will have a different scheme as each quarterback? I don't know. I mean, he may be able to do that, but I'm not sure. But at this particular point, man, no disrespect to Jameis Winston, I think I might hold off on the Jameis stuff for a while, man. Just for a while. Like if something comes up and it involves me talking about Jameis Winston, I will. But I'm moving on from it. Like I no disrespect to anybody, but I'm probably not going to be answering any more questions about Jameis Winston, like for a while, right? Now I'm just not. Especially like if it's about, Jameis Winston and talking about Derek Carr, and I'm over that, man. It's over with. Derek Carr is the starting quarterback. Jameis Winston is the second string quarterback. And until that changes, ain't nothing we really could do about it. So I think I'm good on that for right now. I'm a airplane mechanic, so I'm up all hours of the night. Can't miss your lives, TJ. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for everything that you're doing, man. That's a very underrated job that you have right there. We get on these planes and, we travel across the country, get to our destination. We don't think about that, man. But I definitely thank you for your contributions, man, because, man, what you do, you help and you save hundreds of lives, thousands of lives, making sure that those planes are up in the air and working functional. So shouts out to you, man. I'm kind of excited to see how Pete Carmichael and Derek Carr mesh. I agree. I would like to see that, and also, will we see a difference at the quarterback position, when it comes to being able to dissect defenses and being able to call things out? I mean, it should be interesting. It should be interesting to see, Trill. I think that for the most part, we just want to see some stability at the quarterback position. And it's been a while. It's been a while that we've seen a guy play consistently at the quarterback position, without any interruptions. Rather, the guy gets hurt, somebody else has to come in, and we have to buy into that next person. But, it seemed like Derek Carr, he just won the battle of attrition. I'm knocking on wood when I say that. Hopefully he continues to do that. So I just hope that, whatever happens, we just find ourselves a little bit of stability when it comes to that. See, TJ, my wife was making a funny sound the other day. Turns out it was the Florida-Georgia line on the radio. Oh, man. Yeah, shouts out to the Florida-Georgia line. We actually played a few of their songs here on at the radio station I work at. So shouts out to them. TJ, with all due respect, dude, you had on yesterday kind of jumped that off, though, because he was very pro Jameis in some ways, was ishing on Carr. Look, I completely understand what you saying it. I do. I can understand that. But at the same time, here's the reality. If you feel strongly against something that somebody's speaking of, you're automatically it's going to ignite you. It's almost like if I was to bring a Falcon fan on this show and they were like, man, the Falcons are better than the Saints. Ain't nothing y'all can say about it. We got this better than y'all. We got that better than y'all. Guess what? Your emotions are going to be at an all-time high because you're so emotionally invested in the Saints, right? So it's almost like, man, I ain't trying to hear this, and it's going to ignite something in you. So it's not so much about what he's saying. And here's the thing. Inevitable, maybe this is for all my podcasting people out here, people that aspire to be in broadcasting. I'm about to let y'all in on something, right? There's going to come a time when you're going to have to interview a person that you may not necessarily agree with everything that they're saying, but you cannot put your emotions on your sleeve, right? I completely suspend all judgment when I'm interviewing people, because here's the thing. I've done over 1,000 episodes of this show. I mean, countless clips. Everybody pretty much knows how I feel and knows my voice or whatever like that. Not in a braggadocious way, but if you've been following this show, you see what I'm saying. I give people, my guests that come on this podcast, the opportunity to speak, right? And there's sometimes where I don't agree with what they're saying, but I will respect their, their right to say what they're saying, right? I think sometimes people feel when you bring somebody on a show, it's because you coincide or you sympathize with them or you believe what they're saying, or like it's about content at the end of the day. It's about putting things to perspective. It's about giving people something to think about. When a person comes on the show, I'm giving them a platform to be able to express themselves. And, sometimes, like I said, if you're emotional about a certain situation, it will ignite some type of energy, whether it's positive or negative, in you. But you cannot be afraid or shy away from those situations. I tell anybody, like, I will interview a person that is a part of a racist group. Like, seriously, like, as crazy as that sounds, I would, because I don't go into interviews with any type of emotional investment. You can't. Like, if you're going to do that, then don't do podcasting. Don't do broadcasting. I'm telling you, do not do it. Like, if you can't sit up and do an interview with someone and and you disagree with them and you cannot control your emotions, don't do it. But at the same time, I completely understand why people will feel the way that they do. But you can't be so, emotional about the situation, because here's the reality also. It's hard to change somebody's mind. Like, when I post stuff on Twitter, I just posted. Like, I used to go back and forth. I'm trying to not do that anymore. Reason why is because if a person's mind already made up, you're not going to change their mind. How many times have you ever had a back and forth banter with someone and they say, you know what? You're right. What the way that you feel about it is absolutely right. I'm wrong. I don't think that what I said has any merit because of what you just said to me. How many times do you see that? No. It's if you back them into a corner, they're going to find a way to maneuver or move the goalpost or try to deflect, right? Because nobody wants to admit when they're wrong. So, that's the reason why, it's best for you to kind of control your emotions. It's best for you to just be open to other people's opinion. And even if you don't agree with what that person is actually saying, I mean, just agree to disagree. But, I'm not honestly, I wish I could tell you that I'm probably not going to bring somebody on the show that you're not going to agree with anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to agree with everything that person is saying. I wish I could say that, but I won't. Because what is the point of having conversations? Like, what is the point of growing as an individual? Rather, you grow to realize that maybe this person has some validity behind what they're saying, or growing man, I don't know about that. Maybe I'm more confident within my opinions now that I listen to that particular person. I'm just telling you, because there are so many people, and I appreciate this, man. I'm extremely humbled by the number of emails and tweets and all that kind of stuff that people come up to me and say, or, say to me, I started a podcast because of you. I appreciate everything that you're doing. You got any advice? That's the best advice I can get to anybody that's trying to start a podcast, broadcasting, whatever. Do not be so emotional to a point where you cannot conduct the interview, or you got to be going back and forth with your guests. Because here's the reality. You're doing everybody that listens to you a disservice, because you don't have your emotions in check, and you robbing yourself of an opportunity to follow up on questions, to make the interview much better, than, you even imagine. So don't always wear your heart on your sleeve, folks, and be okay sometimes when people, don't always agree with you. I mean, I'm not always looking for an amen corner. I'm not. Like, I just want to give everybody that advice, because there's so many people that reach out, that want to start podcasts, that get into broadcasting. Those are the type of things that you have to experience, man. Let me stroll up just a little bit more. Let's go to Mirror. Says, if Jameis has to step in due to injury, Facts, TJ. I'm unsure about DA as a coach, but I want him to do it the right way, to be the best, because he is the coach of my team. If he coaches good, we win and look good. If he fails, we fail. So I'm all in. Yeah, that's the way I feel. Last year, around this time, like, I wasn't happy with him. Of course, like, I don't think a lot of Saint fans, but look, I don't want to deflect. I wasn't happy with Dennis Allen, and I stand by a lot of things that I said. I did want him to go. I'm not going to lie about that. It may sound controversial. Some people might not like that, but it is what it is. The team did not look good, and there were times where it just seemed like he got out-coached. But it just seemed like there's something about him that the Saints love. They want to bring him back. They're giving him an opportunity to build the team his way. So I'm willing to give it an opportunity. I'm not going to sit up here and just say, oh, Dennis Allen is a loser. I'm not, I'm just using this as an example. Dennis Allen is a loser, so the team is forever going to be a loser, yada, 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 right? Like, it's a new season. It's a new day. So let's just see where it goes from here. I'm kind of excited to see how Pete Carmichael already read that. Let me scroll down a little bit. I think I read this one too. Let's see. TJ, with Cam Jordan getting up there in age, some draft boards has us taking a cornerback or running back in the first round. Being that D-line has a void, what prospect do you see fitting the mold of the Saints? Well, Ed McDonald is one of them, the guy out of Iowa State. He's an edge rusher. Look, Corey, look, I like that statement that you just made, because it gives me an opportunity to address something. What prospects do you see fitting the mold of the Saints D? See, that's the thing. Need to get away from all of these different molds that you had. The 6'7", 289, 290-pound dudes, right? The guys with long arms and long wingspan that can do swim moves but can't make it to the quarterback, like Peyton Turner or Davenport has failed to do, right? What you need to do is try to get the best pass rusher available. If it's one of those undersized guys like McDonald is 6'3", 240 pounds, right? Not the largest guy in the world, but he can cause havoc and he can get to the quarterback. Nolan Smith isn't the biggest defensive end in the world, right? He's about 245, 250 pounds. But guess what? He can get to the quarterback. Vine Mess out of Iowa, he's about 240, 250 pounds, but he can get to the quarterback. Look, the image, look, what did Shock G say? I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you used to, right? Y'all remember Humpty Hump, right? Stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you used to. You need to go ahead and just eliminate the way that you've been doing business, because obviously there's a new mold of pass rush in the National Football League, and it's not the 280-pound dudes anymore. Like, you think about this, Kayvon Thibodeau, what he about 250? You look at TJ Watt, what are you about 240? You look at the Bosa brothers, what they about 250, 260 maybe, like the guys that are terrorizing the National Football League aren't these big Reggie White type guys anymore, because these guys are so fast, they're so athletic, they're so strong, they can bend low, they can get underneath some of these larger 300-pound offensive linemen, and they can get to the quarterback. So to me, I think that they need to destroy the logic and the thinking that they've been having on the defensive line. I'm looking at some of these smaller guys that are able to get these double-digit sacks consistently. And, yet the Saints have been drafting guys with long wingspan that probably average between 5 to 6 sacks apiece. Sometimes you got to look at what you're doing and wonder to yourself, like, maybe we need to go in a different direction. How is it that these new breed of guys are getting drafted by these teams and they're the ones that's terrorizing, the NFL? Aiden Hutchinson is another guy, right? Aiden Hutchinson is another guy that's terrorizing the NFL, right? This guy catching he had more interceptions than all the cornerbacks on the Saints team, right? He had 3 interceptions last season from the edge, like as a defensive end. He has 3 interceptions. He had more interceptions than anybody in the secondary. That's crazy. So there you go. Well, there's that, expert. Also, get into arguments with people who don't watch any college football as well, especially when it comes to drafting stuff. Well, like, once again, if people are like that, why even entertain them? Like, because here's the thing. We live in a contrarian world, right? There's a lot of people that will go against you because more people see the world the way that you see it, right? And they know that they can see the world the way that you see it. But that's not the most popular thing to do. That's not the most exciting thing to do, right? So I'm going to kick against everything that you actually believe, because I want people to see me. Some people do that. There are some times where I see people that really want to legitimately have a conversation and disagree with what I'm saying. And I can, okay, this is why I feel the way I do. They tell me this is the way I feel you do. I respect what you're saying, right? But then you have other people that I see constantly. Like, I can put, today is Thursday. Well, technically today ain't Thursday because the stars shift this way and they shift this way. So technically it's Friday. Like, you got people that literally feel like would kick against something like that, right? That's just the way that it goes. That's just the way that it goes sometimes, right? So, I mean, you got to be able to pick your battles, right? Some people, feel like Deion Sanders. They got time today, right? Like, I'm gonna give you what you want, but at the same time, you have to understand, like, some people just like to go against how you feel, go against how you feel, and that's fine, But sometimes people just do it because they know they can get under your skin, and sometimes you have to have that thick skin. Sometimes, man, you can't be thin skinned, and you also got to be. You have to understand that other people have difference of opinions than you. And when you do that, that's why I feel like you're ready to, like, take on the world. Get out of here. Yeah, I don't care if somebody disagrees with me, but if you're going to be rude about it, then tell me why you disagree. And a lot of people can't do it because they don't know football. Well, it's not the fact that they don't know football. They just probably don't see the football the way that you do. That's what I'm saying. Like, we can't just be so dismissive. Like, sometimes, like, I just feel like, if you ever take communications, there's something called pseudo listening, right? Pseudo listening, if you take, like, certain bullet points and you apply it to, your response, right? And sometimes, because you can get too riled up, or you may have a difference of opinion than someone, you can kind of miss what they're actually saying. And they might have some validity behind what they're saying. It may not be totally right. It might be like some little points that's missing, but at least you have a full understanding of what somebody is actually saying. I think sometimes we get upset is because we have such a strong stance about certain situations that we don't want to feel like somebody is knocking us off the block, or we don't want, to feel like, like we wavering. And that's fine. Like, you can be true to yourself, but at the same time, be respectful of what somebody else is saying. And even if a person is trying to be disrespectful, you have to ask yourself, why are they being disrespectful? Inevitable, like, why are they being disrespectful? It's because maybe you're speaking too much truth. Maybe it's the fact that your knowledge is trumping what they're talking about. And again, it goes back to what I just said. A lot of people aren't going to sit up here and say, you know what, you're right. You gave me food for thought. Thank you for this conversation. It's been invigorating, right? They're not going to say that, right? So you gotta understand when a person responds a certain way, why are they responding that way? And we gotta, have that strength to just say, I mean, it ain't worth it. So, man, that's what I say. Sometimes like people do understand football. Sometimes people do have really good points. Sometimes it can be a little bit misguided, but you can find the most beautiful things and beautiful flowers and tall weeds, right? Yeah. Let's see. College football has become better since Alabama isn't winning the title every doggone year. Yeah, I mean, look, I like the way college football is going right now, and it has a lot to do with the NILs because now, guys can go out here and get money off their name, image, and likeness, and now it's making it tougher for some of these mainstay powerhouse schools to just get the status quo 4 and 5 star athletes. You really got to go out here and work. I want to say shouts out to Booker T. Washington High School in Tuskegee, Alabama. That's my wife's alma mater. Nick Saban went out there to watch a football player at that school, right? So did the coach at Auburn, right? So Nick Saban don't really go too many places. He'll send representatives and stuff like that. It's very rare. Like, I think if I'm not mistaken, Nick Saban, he was on College Football Game Day, and he said the last time he went go watch a player up close with Jameis Winston when he was in Bessemer, Alabama. So he don't really go too many places. But now, man, you got to go out there. You got to go out there because now these schools can get these NIL deals, and be able to get you and recruit you to these schools, right? Now it's an equal playing field. You can't just say, oh, man, Alabama, Nick Saban, Bear Bryant. You can't just say that, and to a lot of these kids, those things don't really too much matter anymore. I mean, of course, you want to go to the best school to get you into the NFL, but these other schools they have just as much money as Alabama, and, they can make it more appealing, and they're willing to rip some things up and create some new things. I think Oregon started this whole, uniform thing, where you have so many different players, that get recruited by these schools. Now they got all these different variations of uniforms. Oregon used to be like that. That was a really good sales pitch. So now you really got to do your due diligence. Now you can't just go in and put your Alabama shirt on and, and your Alabama visor hat and just go to somebody's house and say, come with me, and I can make you a star. Now it's like you can go to some of these other schools and you can get that name, image, and likeness deal. Social media plays a huge role in that. It can help you generate your following. You got to work now. So you're probably going to see more schools, that probably wasn't part of that conversation end up finding their way back to, national prominence. Thank God for transfer portal. NIL deal changing the landscape in college football. Yep. So teams can now actually compete with Alabama. That's my whole point, Trail. That was a good point. That's a good point that that you just made. Because I mean, I agree. Now you just can't go out here and just rest on, oh, I'm Alabama, I'm Clemson. Nah, you got to go out here and you got to work. And also, I'm happy about that because, when I was growing up, teenage, college, I remember, the BCS. The BCS, it was the computer generated system. And every now and then the computer spit out Boise State. And Boise State can go to the Fiesta Bowl and knock off Oklahoma, right? And sometimes it'll miss. You'll have Hawaii taking on Georgia and getting beat to sleep 60-0, but it was intriguing. And also, I felt like when Boise State beat Oklahoma, we're towards the end of the show, folks, if you haven't noticed. When Boise State beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, a lot of people probably felt before that game happened, we're going to put this little powder puff team out here against Oklahoma. Adrian Peterson going to run for 300 yards, and they can get slapped around, and it's just going to justify us, manipulating this system where we keep these outsiders out. But then you start to see Boise State not only win a Fiesta Bowl, but consistently get talent, consistently find themselves into the BCS games. And then what happened? All of a sudden, we need the college football playoff. We need a committee, right? The committee was designed to keep these boys out, right? To keep them out. to keep the LSUs and the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Clemsons consistently going to these college football playoff games because it was basically a man-made system now, right? But now, what do you do now when other teams can get 4- and 5-star athletes that may not be Alabama, may not be Georgia, may not be Florida, but it's a USC or it's a Utah or it's like a Oklahoma State. Now you got to work. And now, even though you do have a man-made system, what can you do if Oklahoma State is undefeated at that particular time or Utah is undefeated at that particular time? You can't keep them. You can't keep them out now because the entire world sees that they're undefeated and they play in a power conference. So, I think that it's beneficial. It's unfortunate that we had to have 6 or 7 years of the same status quo. Now the NIL deal situation kind of is changing the way and changing the landscape of college football, and now we're getting back to being more competitive. Some of these old guys, they don't agree, they don't like it, because now they got to go out here and work. But hey, that's the inevitable. I had to apologize to 101 yesterday to let him know I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. That's not what TJ Follow is about. I respect his take. I just tired of the drama. I agree, man. Like I said, I don't want that type of energy. Like every time you start talking about that, it does create a divide. And like I said, I'm looking forward to some positivity. Let's see. I got the Saints winning the division, but if another team gets Lamar Jackson or are ready for that, what should we do? Well, if another team gets him, hopefully it's not in the South, right? if maybe it's another team that can be able to get them from Baltimore. Just hope that it's not the Falcons. Yeah, I feel you. My thing is, if you disagree with me, tell me why. And none of them were competent enough to do so. Well, I don't know. Like I said, maybe that was one of those instances where I was telling you, like some people, look, if you generate a certain level of following, people watch you enough or people see you tweeting enough, they know it can push your buttons. And you should never allow anybody to have that level of power over you. Sometimes they can do that because they know that you're going to try to, snap back at them or, they can probably really get you riled up, taking 30, 45 minutes of your life going back and forth with you. So sometimes you got to pick your battles, inevitable. Sometimes people know how knowledgeable you are, but they also know that sometimes like you cannot shy away or run away from, an argument. So sometimes you got to, realize the power that you possess in a positive way and also in a negative way in order to get better. Nick Saban brought back what LSU had today, respect. I just can't cheer for Alabama, even with him there. I can't do it. Born in Baton Rouge and raised in St. Gabriel, Louisiana all day. David, look, there's nothing wrong with that. I ain't got to look. I'm not one of those people that just despise, college football teams, right? I like LSU. I've always liked LSU, but if I was to tell you that I'm so emotionally invested in LSU, like I am Jackson State, I'll be lying to you. Now, the only school like I just strongly, I won't say strongly despise, like I got a level of respect for them, but it's Alcorn and Mississippi Valley State. Like those are two schools, but they are Jackson State rivals, right? The passion that I have for my school is the reason why, I laugh when Alcorn has misfortune and so is Valley. I mean, I stay laughing with Valley because they stay with misfortune, but y'all see what I'm talking about, right? It's that friendly banter, right? Or when the Falcons fall all over themselves constantly, like it's for our viewing pleasure, right? We enjoy that, but I don't have like the same level of emotional investment in watching Alabama fail, because I'm from Louisiana and LSU is there. Like I want to see LSU win it all, but I don't. I have way more passion for Jackson State than I do for LSU, if that makes any sense. And if you went to HBCU or you went to one of these schools. Like if you went to LSU, right? I mean, of course, like you probably despise Alabama, you know, like because you went there. Like you're emotionally invested in that, right? You're emotionally invested in that. I went to Jackson State University, so Alcorn and Valley, like when they lose, I'm emotionally invested in that because, you know, I want to see them fail, you know, because I mean they're Jackson State rivals. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. I get it. I can't stand Mike Evans, but I can't lie. I love his game and how he's built as a wide receiver and physicality. I wouldn't mind having him in our receiving room. Him and Lattimore at practice, though. Yeah, I mean, look, Mike Evans is a talented wide receiver. I got to be honest, man. There's not a wide receiver that's come through the South that I can just say that I hate. You know, I don't want to see them do well against the Saints. But, I mean, I don't hate Steve Smith. I didn't hate Steve Smith. Like, dude was a dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude wasn't no pushover. I mean, Roddy White, Julio Jones. Like, I don't like hate these guys, you know, like I don't despise them. Like I just want to see them fail when they play the Saints, you know, but you know, when you watch these guys from a distance, like if they're playing, like, let's just say they're playing the Titans on a Sunday night or something, like if they making plays, it's like, man, that dude, they're a fool. Like I remember when the Patriots played the Falcons in the Super Bowl, like I feel so bad for Julio because that boy was balling. You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at that Super Bowl, like some of the catches Julio was making out there was like, man, my goodness. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like they lost, so you happy about that. So, you know, but I don't despise any, like, honestly, I don't despise any player, you know, that plays in a division like that. Because I know there's going to be a strong possibility that player might end up coming to the Saints. So, I mean, I just don't want to see them do well when they play against the Saints. It's all good, TJ. I got more passion for the Saints than I do for the Patriots, and I live less than an hour from Gillette Stadium. Yeah, I mean, look, that's just the way that it goes sometimes. Like when you're emotionally invested in something, you know, it's kind of hard for you to turn it off. You know, it's like somebody talking about your mama or your dad or your husband or your wife, you know, or your kids. Like you become like, you know, emotionally invested in. And if they do talk about them, you know what I'm saying, that can ignite some type of like passion or anger, you know, vitriol, you know, like if you're not careful. That's why, you know, I tell people, like, it's very important that you stay in tune with your emotions because people can manipulate you and move you around like a little puppet dog. Don't do that. You must not have watched the Saints game when the St. Louis Rams were in the division. I hated all their receivers. Well, that's because they was good. You know, most of the time you don't like a guy because they good. Like they throwing a monkey wrench in your plans. Like anybody sitting up there like, man, I hate Alex Mack. Like, I hate Jake Matthews. Like, you know, like he about to, you know what I'm saying, Cam Jordan about to go out here and sack Matt Ryan about 3-4 times. Like, you don't look at them dudes like that. Like nobody on the Falcons offensive line, you like, man, I hate that dude. But I guarantee you, if you look at a Falcon fan, they were like, man, I hate Teron Armstead. Man, I hate that dude Ryan Ramczyk. Man, we like, you know, like it's mostly guys that are making your team look crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like Turner, you know what I'm saying? Like Michael Turner or whatever, like Turner the Burner when he was with the Falcons. Like he running all over the Saints, 3 touchdowns. Marshall Faulk, you know what I'm saying, catching the ball out the backfield and running in between the tackles. Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, and Ricky Pro, like all those guys were good. So it's like, of course you ain't gonna like them because they basically been destroying your team. It's just like, I'm pretty sure if you look around the NFC South, a lot of the fans of other teams hated Drew Brees. They hated him. You know what I'm saying? Because they know Drew Brees about to get the upper hand on them. They know that like fourth quarter, about 3 minutes left. They gotta be holding their rosary beads. They gotta be holding their lucky rabbit foot, their lucky horseshoe, because Drew Brees got the ball, and they know 2 things are gonna happen. He gonna put that ball in the end zone, or he gonna set it up for a field goal. You know, most of the people that you just can't stand is because they're good. They just great players. You know, you respect the greatness, you know, but You just don't like the fact that it's happening to you. Talk about hate wide receiver. Roddy White is one of them. I have a funny story, man. Like when I was living in Texas, right? And this was during the time, in my 20s, I used to have dreadlocks. And man, I would go to the store. I would go to like, the gym and stuff like that. I remember one time, like I walked into the gym, the basketball court in the gym, and I had this guy that walked all the way around the gym that would come up to me and he's like, "Man, I swear, man, I thought you were Roddy White." Like, I'm serious, man. Everybody thought that, like, it wasn't at least a day that went by that people didn't think that I was Roddy White. I just thought that was like extremely hilarious. Like, I just thought, like, at first it was, because the first time it was some guys I hung out with, like, "Man, anybody told you like Roddy White?" I'm like, "Nah, man, it's just a joke. Like, you're just messing with me or whatever." But I'm telling you, it's like you go to the store and like people just think that, it's crazy. It was funny. But, Roddy White was a good wide receiver. He was a really good wide receiver. Like I said, most of the time when you don't like a guy, it's because they were good. It's true. I never gave the Bucs much of a thought because they sucked. But when they got Brady and them boys, I had a burning hatred for them all of a sudden. Yeah, it's because of the greatness. Like, people, people find themselves, despising greatness. Let's see, Ricky Pro, one of the best and most consistent white dudes to ever play wide receiver. Guys like him and Julian Edelman are solid. Yeah, Jordan Nelson is one. Adam Thielen is another. Yeah, they had some really good ones out there, man. I think a lot of times those guys slip through the crack because they are white. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's almost like people don't want to give him credit, like Cooper Kupp, like that boy out there putting these boys in the blender. But it's like, who the top wide receivers in the league is? You're gonna name about 4 or 5 black guys, but Adam Thielen is just as good. Cooper Kupp is just as good. Jordan Nelson was just as good. I mean, they got reverse racism when it comes to football too now. like a lot of these guys don't get that credit because they are white boys, man. But man, they can ball out. Man, Cooper Kupp is a beast. Like, cool. I see. Look, there's not. I'm gonna be honest. Like this is real. Marshawn Lattimore can lock up a lot of guys, but the ones that I've seen really giving them problems and fits has been, these wide receivers. Like Adam Thielen, like Cooper Kupp, what I'm saying? Like, those are guys that see to give him both fits and both problems, But hey, man, those guys are good, man. And they deserve their credit, man. They deserve their credit too. They can ball out. I'm gonna take a few more and then we'll get up out of here. It says Jackson State ain't doing nothing. It's all about them Jaguars, man. I can't even keep a straight face. But they been good lately, no lie. Yeah, Southern is good, man. Southern is a good football team. Shouts out to their coach. He be out there and man be out there wearing ascots. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that man can coach. So shouts out to him. And I expect for them to really make some noise, man. This season. Look, Deion Sanders is at Colorado, but Jackson State better play. They better play. Because I'm telling you, like, he left a lot of receipts that they're going to have to find. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Like, these teams are they chomping at the bit. They licking their chops to put up 50, 60 points on Jackson State. Like, I'm telling you, like, Jackson State better play because the attitude and the cockiness that Deion Sanders instilled inside of like Jackson State players, and when it was like on the field and stuff, and how we just superior to y'all and y'all ain't nothing. And then, like keeping quarterbacks in the game, throwing the ball when they up by 3-4 touchdowns. Jackson State better play. I'm telling you. It's going to get real, real ugly because them teams ain't going to have they ain't going to have no sympathy for Jackson State. If they feel like they can put up 100 on Jackson State, they're going to try to put up 100. I live in Atlanta now. I can tell you it's more Saints and Giant fans here than Falcons fans. Who that nation is deep in Georgia. Yeah, Trail, look, I went to the Falcons Saints game week 1. You know, they had a lot of Saints fans out there. They had a lot of Falcon fans. And, we rode the train to get to the stadium. And on the train, you had Falcon fans, you had Saints fans. And, a lot of talking at the beginning of the game. But it was a quiet ride back to the car, when the Saints won. It wasn't much talking after that. I mean, honestly, what could you say? Giving up a big lead like that in the fourth quarter. Let's see. Do you ever go to the Bayou Classic? I used to go to the Bayou Classic when I was younger, but nah. The Who Dat Nation is the best fan base in the entire world. I mean, yeah, this is a pretty good fan base that we have. But as far as the Bayou Classic, yeah, man, not in a long time. When I was younger, of course. I mean, look. Tickets were basically free, like high school, middle school, like you get to go to Bayou Classic. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, but Southern Grambling, that's always gonna hold a special place in my heart, man. I mean, I'm Louisiana through and through. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, the emotional investment in certain schools aren't as strong because I went to Jackson State, but I still got love for the traditions that Louisiana has. The Bayou Classic, the Jazz Fest, Essence Fest, Mardi Gras, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's certain things that just never goes away. They're always a part of you. And those are one of those things. That's $5K coming out your check. Let's see. And we'll finish it up with Chosen says, all good, Jerry. I'm going to have Mickey Loomis reconstruct my deal. Yeah, I mean, look, you about to get that guaranteed money. It ain't no incentive laden deals when you playing for the Saints. You gonna get that signing bonus, right? They're gonna convert that base salary into that signing bonus for you. So that's a positive thing. But thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Really do appreciate it, man. Shouts out to everybody here. Much love to everybody that's listening, no matter where you are, wherever you may be. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. Also on Facebook.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. We got previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, also on Megaphone FM. Shouts out to the Belly Up Sports Network, Sports Podcasting Network. You can check out State of the Saints podcast there, as well as other content that they have in store from other NFL teams, also college football, baseball, hockey. So check out the Belly Up Sports. Follow him on Twitter. And also follow me on Twitter at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?